want to talk about money.
Let's do it. Hearing that money is taboo and it's rude and it's uncouth to talk about, well, then how can you get good at something that you don't discuss? Your investment rate is directly correlated to the amount of years left in the workforce.
Your freedom.
And no one's taught that.
Until now.
You can start investing with as little as $10, $100. I show my entire portfolio because I want to show them I'm not an expert. I'm just a woman doing it. I wish emergency fund had a sexy name and then maybe people would want to do it.
Let's rename it.
I've heard a lot of people call it a you fund.
Oh, I like that much better.
When we make more money, it's really easy to spend more money.
I'm really good at it, actually.
I was incredible. I would spend money before I had the money. You really have to believe you deserve money, and that is where we have to start.
Allegra, welcome to Powerhouse Women. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Lindsay. I'm thrilled to be here.
I really think it's important for people to know that within 2 minutes of meeting one another this morning, for the first time ever, you divulged that you were in your car pumping yourself up to Kelly Clarkson, and I invited myself, maybe forced myself upon you and said, can we go to your car and simultaneously pump ourselves up for this podcast? And we just had a Kelly Clarkson dance party.
Not only did I love that you wanted to go back out to my car and sing with me, but driving over here, I was thinking about how much I miss living in the same city as my best girlfriends and just jamming out. Because my husband doesn't want to hear it. He's like, no.
Anytime.
You have to turn off this music from 15 years ago and get with the times. And
Kelly
I'm like,
Clarkson.
No, I know my loves. It's Kelly. It's Whitney. It's Mariah. Like, they're going to be my loves forever.
Listen, Kelly Clarkson is a national treasure. Come at me if you think otherwise. So,
concur.
I've been excited to have you on the podcast for a while. We've actually been in touch for a few years. You have had some really exciting life developments. You had a baby and it's finally happening. I'm so excited we're getting to do it in person because I got to have a Kelly Clarkson car dance party, but also I'm at a time in my life where this conversation is not just starting to unfold in even bigger ways for me, but I'm seeing the need to have this conversation within a community of women. So I want to talk about money.
Let's do it.
One of your favorite topics to talk about. And as the CEO, the founder of Factora, you have a really, really big mission, which I also love, to lead 1 million women to $1 million in net worth through financial education and community. Obviously, we're going to talk about that. But I want to start right there. How many women would you estimate actually know what their net worth is?
So pretty much any woman I meet, I would say 97 to 100% of them know their income, their annual income. Maybe 10% know their net worth at that given moment that I'm talking to them.
Mm-hmm.
And what's a game changer when women go through Factora's Wealth Circle is that they recognize that's the number I should be tracking.
Yes.
Not just how much I earn in a year, because that can also get spent in a year.
Mm-hmm.
But how much am I actually keeping and growing in the background? Because that's why we're out there working so hard, right? So that we have a future with more independence, more flexibility, more autonomy. The biggest treasure that everybody wants is just more time.
Yes.
And wealth gives us that.
Yeah.
So we have to be paying attention to our wealth factors. And the biggest one is net worth. Then the other biggest one is your investment rate. I can tell you about 0% of women know that when they come into the Wealth Circle.
I wouldn't know how to calculate that. I am investing, but I wouldn't know how to calculate it. So in case anyone listening is like, okay, I now feel dumber. Thank you for pointing out I don't know those things. We've got you. We love you. You're not dumber. But how do you calculate net worth? Simple formula. And then how do you calculate your investment rate?
So net worth is just all of your assets. So take everything that you own, the cash in your bank account, the investments in any retirement accounts or brokerage accounts, the owned equity of your house. So for instance, if you have a house that has a mortgage, you have to subtract the mortgage out and the portion that you own goes to the positive. Those are your assets. We subtract your liabilities, any additional debt, credit cards, car loans, etc. And that difference is your net worth. So assets minus liabilities equals net worth.
And that's the thing. It's a simple math calculation, but it's not one that we're taught.
Well, not only are we not taught that, we don't see our net worth when we go to our bank account, when we go to our credit card statements. So it's really important to find a platform. There's a ton of tools that will do this for free. We also have spreadsheets in the Wealth Circle. It's the very first assignment that women do is they calculate their net worth. And we want it to be in an Excel spreadsheet and manual because I want you to go find every account and determine how much is in it, what fees are associated, and tally it up. Assets minus liabilities, see it right there.
Yes. Yeah. And then the investment rate, we're going to talk more about the investing side of things, but just if anyone's wondering that question before we go too far, what's the investment rate?
Okay, so not even a term I was familiar with, so definitely don't feel dumb if you don't know this.
I don't know.
It's totally fine. So basically your investment rate is just at what rate are you investing consistently? So month over month, or if you only invest once a year, a lump sum at the end of the year, which not many people do because we're used to having retirement accounts, right? And we know the idea of contributing a little bit month over month is helpful. So anywhere you are investing, you are simply just totaling up how much you're putting into investments and dividing that into your income.
Easy.
And that's and times it by 100, and that's the rate. So just to give like a really, really simple example, if you make $100,000 a year and you invest 50% of it, you have $50,000, you have a 50% investment rate. Now, I will say the majority of America has a less than 10% investment rate, which if you're only investing 10% throughout your career span, this is why careers typically last from age 22 to 65, because you need a lot of time to get that money into a place where it can grow and compound. What we do in the Wealth Circle is teach women that they are actually in charge of the amount of time to financial freedom simply by upping that rate. So if you're investing 0, we obviously want to get it up. But if you're investing 10, can you do 20, 30? And the reason I said 50% is because so many women are investing 50%. Once they learn all these fundamentals, they're like, why wouldn't I do this?
Yes.
I want to not be in my career for the next 35 years. I want to cut that down to 17 because it's your investment rate is directly correlated to the amount of years left in the workforce.
Your freedom.
And no one's taught that
until now.
I think it's one of my favorite graphs in the Wealth Circle, and we bring it back time and time again because it's just an unlock.
Yeah.
It puts you in control because you can determine how much of your income you put away, but you have to flip into that being the focus. Otherwise, we're women. We know that marketing has a target on our back. Like consumerism is here focused on women. So when we make more money, it's really easy to spend more money. I was so guilty of this.
I'm really good at it, actually.
I was incredible. I would spend money before I had the money.
What's my spending rate? I probably could, no, I don't even know if I could calculate that, but it's true. It's so true.
Yeah.
So you share really openly your story of going from negative $18,000 in net worth to over $1 million. But I want you to take me back to the wake up moment when you realized something had to change and that you could change the future.
Well, there were two. And I'm starting to realize that that's kind of how life works. You take one step and then you can see the next, right? The whole staircase is never revealed. So back in my 20s, living in New York, my first job, I was making $40,000 at the Estee Lauder companies. I didn't negotiate for more. I didn't know that I could. Fast forward until later in my 20s. Now I'm making 6 figures. I'm making over $100,000 in New York. But every time I made more money, I got a nicer apartment or a designer bag or went on a Europe trip, which I deserved. I worked hard for this money.
Yes.
And I still felt stressed because I saw very little in my checking and in my savings, and I didn't even have investments at that point. So the first realization was just because you make more money doesn't mean you have more money. And the second realization was you can't just learn about this stuff. You actually have to implement it. And I went on this personal financial journey of devouring every podcast, all these personal finance books. I felt so smart. I wanted to talk to everyone about money. but I still wasn't doing anything with mine because I also didn't want to make any mistakes. Enter that female imposter syndrome that so many of us have experienced. I'm thinking, okay, if I make this 6-figure salary in New York, but my apartment is still really expensive and life here, a high cost of living city, I don't have that much to invest. So I was just beyond frozen because I didn't want to mess up. That was when I realized, okay, you actually have to talk to someone about this so that you can even get out of your own head and get into the implementation phase. And so I think the big realization for me is there is no substitute for experience. You just have to do it and be willing to mess up, right? And that's the same in business. Like,
so true.
We wake up every day and we just have to figure out what next to do with our business. And we don't know if it's going to be right. We're just going to go with our gut and give it a try. And if it doesn't work, pivot. And so I love to tell women that there is literally no financial mistake they can make. I will asterisk that if you have a lot of student loans, I realize there's no true forgiveness there. So that's a really hard one. And we could do a whole nother podcast episode on my anger with the student loan industry, but I'll save that for another time and just get back to the fact that you can start investing with as little as $10, $100. And if you mess up or lose a little money, that is how you'll learn. Not even you can learn from it. That is how you'll learn and invest better the next $10 or $100.
Yeah. So was that point number one? And
that was
there
point
a
one
second
and two.
one?
Point one was just because you make more money doesn't mean you have more money. And point two was, well, if I actually want to grow this money, I have to invest.
Yes.
And I really wanted to just save.
Okay. Because I'll add a point 3 for you, because I want you to take me to this point of the story when you said, I knew I had to talk to someone about it, because I'm going to be honest. I remember sitting down with a financial planner in my early 20s, was still earning a corporate income at that time. And I just felt I had no idea what questions to ask. I felt disempowered by the conversation. And I didn't want to go back to it for that reason.
And I can tell you that you are not alone. So many women feel that way. We see a lot of women come into the Wealth Circle that have financial advisors. I want to be very clear. Factora is so agnostic over what financial accounts you use, what investments you do. We are not investment advisors. We are not telling you this is the investment you should make, because we don't know your personal life as well as you do. We want to empower you to understand your own risk profile, your own investing goals, and then go out and do them. But when it comes to financial advisors, we love to give women a set of questions so that they don't feel that disempowerment, because I think the financial industry is ripe for change. I think the whole idea that a financial advisor can sit behind a computer and say, I'm an expert, you're a novice, show me yours, I'll never show you mine. Why should I trust you? What if you have way more debt than I do? You know, like, that is why I'm so transparent and I show my entire portfolio, not because I want someone to invest like I do, but because I want to show them I'm not an expert. I'm just a woman doing it, and I'm going to keep doing it because as long as I'm alive, I feel like I have the opportunity to build wealth, and I want to teach other women and empower them that they can do the same.
Yeah. We were talking a little bit earlier too about how if I think back to that stage of my life, when I heard the word investment, I thought 401k or the stock market. Now, a lot of our investments, the majority for us right now, are in things like real estate, more tangible assets. And it wasn't until much later, and honestly through my husband's connections, that we started to have different conversations about options. So I know that's something you're really passionate about too, is teaching women the different asset classes.
Yeah. And I would venture to say that probably a lot of your portfolio is in your business too. I mean,
that's true.
The way we teach in the Wealth Circle is that it's not just the stock market. Stock market falls within what we call paper assets. That's the type of asset that they probably should be called digital assets now, because you don't own the paper stock certificate. You go onto your little brokerage account. But there are 3 main asset classes to build wealth. Paper assets, which includes the stock market, is primarily the stock market, but it can have commodities, other things. Real estate, very tangible. We can all understand real estate, but there's so many opportunities there. And business. And if you were to look at the Fortune 400 list of the wealthiest people, 95% of those are wealthy from a business. So actually, business investing is one of the best ways to build not just wealth for you and your family, but generations of your family.
Yes.
And so many of us are taught this narrative that if you go to school and take out as many student loans as possible to go to the best school, that you just need to get a job, put money in your 401k, and everything will be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we got sold a bad bag of goods, because that keeps a lot of people on this corporate track, not even realizing that they could be in control of their wealth building if they looked at other asset classes. Not to say that the stock market isn't an exceptional way to build wealth. It is, but think about why it's used for your 401k. What is a 401k? It's a retirement account that has tax advantages. Why does it have tax advantages? Because the government wants to encourage you to save for your future so that they don't have to pay the tab. I mean, they're obviously going to supplement with things like Social Security and Medicare, but they want you to prepare for that future where you're no longer working.
Yeah.
But it's the slowest growth method to build up an amount of money that you can retire on. And so that is why they're used, because corporates would like to encourage you to stay the course with them. Just put your 10% away. Don't pay attention to wealth building. Just, you're a career person. Just get better at your career. And then one day, hopefully you've saved enough along the way and you've got this pile that you hopefully got the number right, and you can dwindle down until you pass away. And I just think, why do that when you can do whatever you want by simply learning how to invest and becoming a confident investor, and not keeping yourself tethered to only the stock market?
Yes. And I love how you always bring it back to the freedom piece. That is, the time freedom is actually what we're after. And you had this great reel that was posted on the Factora account just recently that made this distinction. I'd never heard it put this way, distinguishing between financial freedom, which I think feels like this far off thing, therefore it doesn't feel imminent now, versus financial flexibility. Will you talk about the difference?
Totally. So I think financial freedom is a term that everyone loves. It sounds beautiful.
It's
I like to
sexy.
say it. I want to feel it. I want to be it. I want to breathe financial freedom. And I do think it is worthwhile to define, because that way we can really even understand what it is. And there are a lot of definitions, but the way I define it and we define it at Factora is when you create enough passive income. Now, that's opposite than active income. When you go to a job, you're exchanging your time for money. Passive income is exchanging your money for money, which means you can go over here, but your money's working, right? So how do you do that? You do it through investing. So financial freedom is when you can create enough passive income through investing that income affords your life instead of you having to go out and work to afford your life. And that is probably going to be further off in the future, because let's say you get a rental property and that contributes an additional $1,000 a month, right? That's great. And let's say your stock market dividends are giving you $1,000 a month. But let's say you make $10,000 a month, right? So that's two. And we have to do a lot more of that until it fully covers what your paycheck would have made. On the way is something called financial flexibility. And anyone can attain financial flexibility as long as they're doing some really fundamental things, which is living within their means, mitigating high interest debt, having an emergency fund on hand for the life lemons that are coming. We don't know what they are or when they're going to arrive or how much they're going to cost, but we know they're going to be stressful. And if we have the money there, that part we don't have to worry about. And then beyond that, investing in the different asset classes for that future of financial freedom. If you have just these basics going on, I am watching women self-fund sabbaticals. Literally say, I don't want to work this year. I've been working for 15 years straight and I want to take some time. just for me, not because they need to step out of the workforce to take care of a growing family or parents. And that flips the script. So there is so much financial flexibility on the way to financial freedom, as long as you have kind of your financial ducks in order.
One of the things that immediately, and I can't even remember how Factora came across my radar or what had me start to dig into the amazing work that you're doing, but the first thing that struck me, obviously, was the community element. And even just hearing you share that, I would have never considered that a sabbatical as an opportunity for when I was in corporate. Being in a community where you see women not only achieving the things that you want to achieve that maybe feel far off, that you can say, okay, wow, if she did it, I can do it too. But seeing different examples of women who are making their investments their own. Talk about the importance of community in helping to reach the mission that you ultimately have.
How much time do you have?
A while. Go off.
Are you familiar with Brooke Castillo?
Yes.
Okay. I love her. And she has a term called possibility drops. And I once heard her talk about, do you remember the game of life? We would play it.
I loved the game of life.
I loved it so much.
Next time we're going to play the game of life.
I would love, I mean,
okay,
do they still sell it? Because that would be such
they
a
do.
fun. Okay.
Now it's like a retro game.
It's gotta be. It's
like Chutes and Ladders.
Half the jobs don't exist.
Isn't
I
that
always
so
wanted
true?
to be the travel agent. I don't need a travel agent. I have Expedia, you know, like there's
so
just
true.
Anyways. And then I remember you had to get an extra car if you had too many kids, whatever. But she was talking about how the game of life only gives you these 15 career paths. And that's kind of similar to growing up. When parents or friends of parents ask children, what do they want to be? It's very standard answers because the kids have only been exposed to doctor, lawyer,
teacher,
Broadway star, which was my first dream. Fell a little short of that, but you know, you don't know all of these different things. So to your point, that is why the community matters so much, because when you see other women taking a chosen sabbatical, saying, hey, job, I would like to go for 6 months. We can talk about you keeping my job available or bringing me back, but I'm going regardless. That is so powerful. And now hundreds of other women just saw her do that, and it's a possibility in their life too. That is why community matters, especially when it comes to women and money, because we grew up hearing that money is taboo and it's rude and it's uncouth to talk about. Well, then how can you get good at something that you don't discuss? Obviously you can't. You know, we talk about our careers all the time. We talk about our relationships all the time. We talk about things because we want to be more knowledgeable about them. Why did money get left out?
Yes. Yeah. I was sharing that with you before we started as well, that I realize how much I'm even still unpacking some of the shame or some of the embarrassment that still is real for me today in this world where we're all just kind of sharing our highlight reels, and we're not sharing our investment missteps or our investment failures, our business failures. And I had this idea to start like a trending hashtag, my favorite failure, and just like normalize sharing failures. Have there been any for you that have been those moments where even at the time, maybe you were embarrassed or felt shame, or just failures looking back money-wise that you realize now were such a gift?
Yeah.
Or maybe they still suck.
No, the first one that comes to mind was after that job at the Estee Lauder company, I started my own company at 25 because I wanted to be a CEO.
Yeah, boss babe.
You could just do that. And I needed capital for that business. It was a luxury loungewear brand. Well, where did I have money? In my 401k. So I cash out of my 401k, having no idea that you get a really big tax penalty.
Huge.
When you're not age 59 and a half, which is when you're allowed to start withdrawing those funds. Now, there are other reasons that you can take money from your 401k. It's dependent on your provider and all of that. So look into it. But a lot of times a first home purchase or these type of things are allowed. But I cashed out of the whole thing. And I only received about 50% of what was in there. And I had no idea that was going to happen.
No one told you when you went to withdraw it? Isn't that wild?
I was clueless.
Wild.
I can just keep going. Another one would be not negotiating my salary, right? I had no idea that the number you come in at a company is the number that they are going to use to determine all of your performance-based bonuses and additional compensation from. So you need to make sure and ask for the most. And they're already expecting you to negotiate. So they have some back. And for all the women who don't, I truly believe that gives more money to the men who continue asking, not once, not twice, maybe 3 times. And they have it. So that's part of the lopsided, in my opinion. Another one was when I moved from Miami, Florida to New York City for that job at the Estee Lauder companies where I was going to be making $40,000. This was in 2010. And I'm moving from a no income tax state, but I didn't know that, where I was making $25,000 at my first job. Well, I thought I'm getting a $15,000 raise. This is amazing. No. I was moving to the most expensive city in our country, and I ended up actually making less.
Yeah.
So there are so many ways I've been financially ignorant. And, you know, we don't have personal finance classes in schools, which I think is a pity because
actually they did teach me how to balance a checkbook, which I have never used.
I was going to say I always go back to, I had one class in high school that was balancing a checkbook and I too never got a checkbook, but I loved the little book.
Yes. That's one of my favorite memes that floats around during tax time is thinking back to all those classes that left me no value in high school because I've never had a geography of Asia season. Like we have a tax season.
Correct.
And
great point.
It's so true. And it's refreshing to hear that like from the leader of this community, from someone who's been in our shoes, even just normalizing the failures on the way to the success.
Well, and that I started in debt when I had this realization that if I really wanted to accomplish the goals I had in my future, I needed to be different and behave differently and create better patterns, better belief systems, better habits with money.
Yeah.
And starting there is a big one. And so when you bring up unpacking shame and all these other emotions around money, everyone has to and should. And it's really amazing when they do. I have a podcast where typically the first question that I ask women is, what was your first money memory? So I'm interested. What was your first money memory?
I loved it. I've dug into this with different looking at money mindset work. And the one that I can access, and I couldn't even tell you how old I was a disagreement between my parents. And I don't even actually know if it was about money, but my takeaway from it was that it was, and my mom took us bowling. That was how we resolved it. And I think in my entire life,
to make you feel better because she could tell that you were upset.
I think because just to diffuse the situation, and to this day, my parents are still happily married, and I think it's the only time I actually remember them having a fight.
Wow.
And I remember that, but I also remember the second one would be a little bit older, more like 3rd and 4th grade, and I was really into dance. We couldn't afford for me to go to like dance classes. We couldn't afford for me to take piano lessons. So I had like the tiniest keyboard. Like my friends who were in piano lessons had like an actual piano. So it was this constant memory of that we can't afford that. That's not for us, which in my adult years, just being super transparent had me rebel the other way of like, I'm not going to withhold from myself because I didn't like, that felt so, I think it's such a deep core wound of feeling like you don't belong.
Yeah.
You don't have the things that other people have.
And I love that I just got to hear your experience and more importantly, how you went opposite later on, because when I ask this question to women, and I've been doing it for 5 years, it really is 50-50. 50 of them have a positive memory and 50 have a more negative memory. And in their adulthood, they typically go the reverse of what happened. So what is really, really interesting to me is even if you had a great childhood where money was not an issue, maybe it still became an issue later on in your adult life. And we put so many emotions and thoughts and beliefs into money and what it means. And that's some work we have to do to release, because the first session we do in a wealth circle is all about mindset. I truly believe that changing your money belief system to a really abundant, powerful, I deserve to be wealthy. It's not gross to say that. There's no greed here. I love money and money loves me situation from wherever you're starting from will make you more wealthy than any sum of money ever could. I mean, you hear about it with lottery winners, right? How can you blow through 30 million or whatever it is? Well, if you don't believe that you deserve it and you don't have these quality habits and positivity and the right mindset, it's going to go right out the door.
Yes.
We all know it's easier to spend money than to save money, right? So you really have to believe you deserve money to even be able to save and invest. And that is where we have to start in every wealth circle.
It's so good. And I feel like having the full picture, the empowerment, the community, the mindset, it's what drew me to you, to your work from the beginning before we even got to meet and have our Kelly Clarkson dance party was I just see such a mirror to the impact we get to make through the Powerhouse women community. And I even told you, I said, I'm so excited because I feel like I have the women who don't know that you exist and they need to. So if we were to kind of wrap this up by giving people some tangible action steps, no matter what age bracket they're in, no matter kind of what stage of life, what are some of the easiest and most accessible action steps so that we don't get stuck in overwhelm? Because I think that can happen a lot too.
100%. Well, first of all, thank you for the compliment, because I do feel like we built Factora, and I mean, this is version 12.0, right? I'm sure you know, as a business builder, you're constantly iterating and trying to make it better. But we did build it as a holistic experience, because that time I talked about in my life where I understood what to do, but I wasn't doing it, that's where I needed to talk it out and have the community. So I knew I needed that piece in there. But a lot of women don't come to fix their money and want the community part, because it's difficult to share. And in the very first session, women are sharing their incomes, their net worths, the real raw numbers. And it is palm sweaty and it is difficult. But once you go through that, I feel like it's so cathartic and like, oh, I did it. And I'm still here and it's fine. So I can do it again.
And no one laughed or no one judged
me. Who cares? You know, like it's a number. I'm making it mean something. All of that to say, the fundamentals when it comes to finance are boring basics. Like they really, really are, but they'll feel so good when you get them done. Go calculate your net worth. Tally up what are your assets, what are your liabilities, get that net worth number. Go check your credit score if you haven't. I know a lot of people who get really nervous to do that. And I always say it's your adult GPA, but the one that actually freaking counts. Like this one matters.
A lot of things in your life.
So you need to know those three numbers and you want to work to increase them way before you need a mortgage or any other type of loan. Have an emergency fund. Nobody wants to do this. That's like, I wish emergency fund had a sexy name and then maybe people would want to do it.
Let's rename it.
Oh, I've heard a lot of people. Can I cuss?
Yes.
Okay. I've heard a lot of people call it a fuck you fund. And
I like that much
like
better.
Way more intriguing to me.
That's the vibe.
That's you can call it anything. It can be your sabbatical fund. It can be your like, I'm getting a Dalmatian fund. I don't care what it is. Whatever makes you want to put money in that so that you have cash, liquid, available, accessible to you if and when you need it. You do those few things and then you stop and you take the time to learn about investing. Give yourself a community of women who are already investing and you will be off to the races.
Yeah. So if people are looking for that community, this is the one I would recommend. So tell us, where can we connect, learn more, and really start to put these things into action? Because if you hear this episode and you realize, wow, there's some work for me to do here, but then it just inspires you, but doesn't inspire you into action, I don't want you all to be in the same place a year from now, re-listening to this episode.
Totally. So you can find us at factorawealth.com and on all the socials. We have so many free resources. So there's a great workbook that's called How to Grow Your Net Worth by 30K. It is going to get you started on some of these basics that I just talked about. It's going to walk you through them. Like, how much should you have in your emergency fund? Where should you put your emergency fund? High yield savings account, those kind of things. We're going to get through them. We also have an investing 101 checklist. So if you're someone who wants to start investing or is investing maybe in your 401k, but not somewhere else, great tool for you. And then we have a podcast called Coffee and Coin, where I interview women on their financial life and every actual number. There's no shame. It is so fun. We just open up their financial trunk and I dig in. So it's
really good. It actually is one of my favorite podcasts.
Oh,
I just listened to the one about girl math.
Yeah,
we didn't get into that today, but thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
And the ripple effect. I end every interview with one question, and it's just such an opportunity for all of us, myself included, to pause and acknowledge something that I've done that's great, or just acknowledge my own growth. We just call it a powerhouse moment. Anything big or small that has happened recently or as far back as your mind wants to go. But when I ask, what's a recent powerhouse moment you want to celebrate? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
The first one that comes to mind, and it's overwhelmingly in my brain, so I guess I have to share that one, is we recently had our 5-year business anniversary. And I found myself writing this whole LinkedIn post about, what I've seen in 5 years and impact and blah, blah, blah. And I realized that the post was ego, and it was more for me than it was to serve anyone else. And I deleted it and I got back to my work of serving my customers.
Mm-hmm. That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Lindsay. I am so appreciative of your work and love that you get how much women need to gather. And communities and spaces that allow for that are where we are going to continue to change the game.
We would drop these mics, but they're very expensive.